Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another live show. This is a regular Thursday thing. This is a little bit different than what I've been putting up over the last few days, where I've been giving a live shows about starting up a wedding and portrait photography business, which has been going really, really well. I'm so happy with how that's actually going. I've just been going through hardware at this stage, and that's going to continue a little bit yet. I won't be doing that today, though. I'm going to have a break over the weekend because it's Friday here. We're in the future for you guys over in the States and Germany and wherever else that you're watching, Peru. So it is Friday afternoon here. Saturday, obviously, I'm busy with shoots and things, so I won't be able to continue the series. I'll start again on Monday. Which is your Sunday. So that'll continue then. We've got to still go through some more hardware and things like that. So what I'm going to go through today, this is the usual live show. We're going to have questions, obviously. We can stop at any time, and I'll just keep checking what you guys are posting up on the questions over there. I've got a screen which is above me over there, so if I'm looking up, I'm just checking what people are saying. So we'll go through the normal rumours, news. I'm going to take you through a shoot that I've done to show you how the lighting's been done in that. And also a couple of things that's what's in my camera bag that I'll show you as well. And then we can have a general discussion at the end. So if you can, guys, give me a thumbs up. We'll just see if we can get some more people over. And we'll just continue anyway. So I'll start off, we're going to go through just some news. We'll have a look. So I'm going to switch over to the other desktop. Just let me check before we do that. Just let me see where people are from. So we've got Mike from Germany, Sebastian's from Peru, we've got Chad from California. Michael is just saying that he's been watching, but late. He's been watching the live stream at later on, which is fine. I mean, we can't sort of watch everyone live, so it's great. Just remember, if you are watching those live shows, that you put questions down below, and I'll try and answer what you need, guys. So that will be done as well. So we've got people basically from all over the place, which is so good. It's fantastic. So I'm going to switch to the desktop because I want to go through some news with you guys. This was a really interesting article this morning that I noticed was just put in, that DP Review have reassessed the Sony A9. They were originally saying that the A9 wasn't very sharp. And it turns out that if you read this story, that the actual lens that they were using was the 85mm 1.8. All their other tests they've been doing with the 55 1.8 lens, which, as they've said, is super sharp. But it turns out that their actual tests were a bit flawed. They weren't truly nailing the focus. What was happening was, due to the fly-by-wire nature of the Sony lenses, they were having real issue manually focusing on these charts. They're saying that to use autofocus on a flat chart, it becomes quite hard. So what they do is they manually focus. Now they've worked out that they actually had to put it on basically a jib that will focus like you're doing macro photography, where it can be moved very, very slowly. When they did that, they found that the the camera actually is very, very sharp. So they've reassessed it. So you can actually read this article, and I'll put the links to these in the comments box later on. But you can actually read the article, and they've put new charts up. Excuse me. They've put new charts up that you can actually download and have a look at the pictures, and they've explained basically the long story about saying how the lens was an issue and things like that. So it looks like, to do these tests really, really accurately, they're having to stick them onto like a macro adjuster where they can move the lens very, very slowly with a little wheel that they actually turn, and that way they can lock on the real focus. So it turns out that the A9 wasn't soft like what they were saying. Now, I have to give credit, I suppose, to DP Review, that they did update this document to actually say that they made a mistake with their first testing, and the A9 is actually a lot sharper than what they thought. So I wanted to bring that up with you. So leave your comments about what you think about that too, guys, because it's interesting. Sometimes DP Review can be, I don't know sometimes how to take some of their reviews, but at least in this case, it now backs up what DxOMark have said about the A9 being a very, very sharp sensor, and it's now proven by these new results that have just come out. So that's a great thing. So at least they've sort of corrected their document, and it's now come up to the truth basically has come out. So have a read of that article. It's really interesting. I just read it before and downloaded the samples and had a look, and it was a really good article to read. Another thing too, which was really, really good too, was that this Sony A9 conspiracies banning and overheating came out. So Tony Northrup did a video just recently talking about the Sony A9, and it's a really interesting article. Now, I know Tony tends to be really honest with the Sony cameras because often he's actually give them a fairly hard time. And he's actually saying in this that the Sony A9 has been excellent for what he's used. He's actually purchased it with his own money. And he goes right through a whole video about the conspiracies of the overheating, banding, etc. And you should watch that if you haven't watched that yet. But it's a really interesting article it's a really interesting video that he talks about. And he also compares it at the end by saying that for some reason he can't understand why it's being slammed so much by the Nikon and the Canon crowd, because when he starts talking about the features, he's saying that the camera itself is not overpriced for what it's offering. In fact, it's actually a good buy. So have a look at that YouTube video, because Tony does often tend to, like I said, he does tend to be one that I do believe in what he's saying. Sometimes he does get a little bit technical in what he's talking about. I've had issues with some of the things that he sort of talks about between full frame and APS-C sensors and using lenses on the cameras, where he says there's a degradation. I haven't found that, but so some things I don't agree with what he says, but this is a really interesting video. So have a look at that if you haven't looked at it. Just let me see what is going on up here. Tag the Shooter said, I didn't need DP Review to tell me it was sharp. I had it from day one and knew it was. Yeah, so it is. I mean, I've also said I'm really, really happy with it. Remember, too, that these things are for pixel peepers that sometimes are never happy with what they see. So they'll go by what these reviews are that they're looking as pixel peepers. So have a look at that video and just see what you guys think. And leave your comments down below too, and let me know what you think about that as well. There's another rumour as well coming. I'll just talk about the new dates for the 12 to 24 millimeter and the 16 to 35 dates have now come out. They're saying the 12 to 24 millimeter Sony lens will be July the 6th, so it's not very far at all. The 16 to 35 mil f2.8 is now going to be July the 27th, so there's a little bit of a wait on those lenses if you're waiting. I know Michael has pre-ordered. I'm not sure if you've got both, Michael, have you? Let me know. So at this stage, they're saying that the 12 to 24 should be this, in a couple of weeks. The 16 to 35, they're still a month away, waiting on that one, which sort of, I think, is probably true, because I went to a Sony seminar here for the release of the A9 the other day, and they were saying that the 16 to 35 is still a few weeks away. So those figures do sort of match what has been said before. Michael has said, I think it's not going to matter to the haters. Probably true. And damage is done, because at the end of the day, if people believe DPR, Sony is the real victim because it affects their sales. Michael Pierce, you did get both, Michael, have you? Yeah, well, they're the dates now that they're saying that it's going to come out. So Tag the Shooter, them dates in the title are wrong, David. 16 to 35 is not scheduled till August now. Oh, well, that's interesting. So it's changed again, according to this. My 100 to 400 is due July the 27th. So there's still a bit of wait on those as well. I want to try the 100 to 400 lens because it does interest me now that I've got the A9. I wouldn't mind to have a try with that lens and think about purchasing it. Even though it's f4, like I said, that doesn't bother me because I've still got the f4 70 to 200 and the 2470 f4. The f4 doesn't worry me at all. And plus, that will keep that lens light. But I wouldn't mind to... look, I've never shot them before. I've never photographed birds, but I'd love to have a go at shooting them. And obviously, you can't really do that with the 70 to 200, so I'd like to try the 100 to 400, so I may give that a go. But it looks like it's still well over a month away. That's in the US too, is it? So here it might even be a bit longer. So those dates may be wrong, according to Tag the Shooter there as well. The other thing I wanted to talk about too was that Samyang, there's rumours that they're going to release another autofocus FE lens by the end of the year. So it's going to be interesting to see what that lens is. The 35 that has been released, there's multiple reviews now on the web that you can go and look at. It seems to be that it's a really, really good buy. It's not apparently the aberrations are not as good as what the Sony lens is, and plus it's not weather sealed either, which may matter to you. I've got the 35 2.8, and I love that lens. It's a great travel lens, so I use that lens all the time. So I really do like it. So I won't be getting the Samyang one. I've already got the Sony, even though it is much more expensive. But looking at the reviews, there still is a little bit of a difference between the two of them, but it just depends on how much you want to spend. But so obviously there's more lenses that are going to be coming out, and clearly this is going to be a good thing if they start to release multiple lenses over the coming months and years. So it's quite exciting. They're not actually saying yet what they think it will be, but we'll just have to wait and see. They're actually saying it's an SR5, but they can't give any details yet about what they think it will be. So have a guess. You guys have a guess about what you think it will be. Tag the Shooter said, we will have it. So you can add me on Instagram and get me on YouTube, and I will show you for football. Yeah, so he's talking about using that 100 to 400. He'll demo some shots for me, which will be good. I'll probably, like I said, I might try and get one just so I can have a look at it myself. Another thing too, which some of you may find interesting, and this was released the other day, this website, this is from Petapixel, but I've seen this somewhere else as well. This website can reveal how JPEG photos were edited in Lightroom. So if you're curious about how they were edited in Lightroom, you can go to this site, and I'll put the links there that you can have a look at. It's called Pixel Peeper, and it's meant to tell you how the image was edited in Lightroom. So it's an interesting thing. You just drop the image actually into the web page over here, and then you can go through the site and look at everything that's been edited. So this is an interesting thing for people that are wanting to learn. You could have a look. Like I said, I'm going to show people how I edit and everything over these coming weeks anyway with this series that I'm doing, so I don't hide anything. But some photographers will hide what they do, and this is one way that you can check what's actually going on. You might find that some photographers now will stop sharing their metadata so that you can't do this. So it's going to be interesting to see how it affects it. Francisco said, the 35mm, do you know something about the Samyang 50 1.4 AF for E-mount? No, I've never used that, Francisco, but I wouldn't mind to try it just to see. So if any of you guys have used that are in the chat, let me know, or chime in the chat. Or if you're watching this later on, leave those in the comments down below, and we can have a little talk about that too, because I'd be interested to know how well it performs as well. The issue for me too is that because I'm doing so much fusion as well, the silence of the focusing is very important to me. So if these lenses are noisy with their autofocus, it's not going to be really suitable for what I'm shooting. And I know the Samyang have been known to be a little bit noisy sometimes in their focusing. So let me know if you are using them, and like I said, if you're watching now, you can chime in. But if you want to let me know later on, let me know in the comments whether you find the autofocusing very, very good, what the quality of the lens is like, and also whether the focusing is a little bit noisy, because I would be interested to know that. Because Francisco's saying performance, etc. The 50 FE 1.4 performs great, ultra sharp, wide open, not much CA. Well, that's from Mike, so he's saying that it's pretty good. What's the cost of that, Mike? Over, I'll just Google it and we can have a look. Because I'm just curious to know if 1.4 Sony. Let's have a look at how much it costs. So these are Australian prices. Well, we'll look at B&H because that's probably more relevant to you guys coming from over there. Well, they're saying here that it's $448. It's $593 Australian. Oh, that's the A-mount one. It's not the A-mount one that we're looking at, though, is it? It's we want to get FE. Well, it's expensive. I'll just show you the Australian version of it. It's pretty dear. Now, that's the Sony one. Yeah, I can't find it. I'm not sure where it is. Oh, I haven't put that in there. That's why. Samyang, isn't it? Yep. Oh, no, it's cheap. Yeah, it's really cheap. Now, it's rocking on here, so don't worry about that. It's rocking on in the US, and I think it's Samyang here. This would be the same lens. So that's really cheap, isn't it? I should get one of those just to try one. Be interesting. So it's $399. Australian, it's $528. Wow, that is cheap. If they are good at that, I mean, the aperture range is nice, f1.4 to f22. Mike's got one as well. Did you find it? Is it quiet, Mike, in the AF? Because I'm interested. And he's saying that also the DMF is supported as well, which is good too. Because I do use the DMF. That's where you can have it in continuous focus or single focus, and then you can continue to focus. Second you turn the ring, the focus ring, it then becomes manual, and you can use focus peaking. Well, he's also put some flicker images up there as well. Mike, if you add those into the comments later on, because this will disappear once this live show goes. Stick that into your comments later on. I'll approve that one, and then people can have a look at those results from your Flickr page as well. So put it in the comments. It'll just come through as spam, but I will approve it. And this, is that not the AF version? Oh, so this is the, obviously it's just the manual focus. Let me go AF. Let's have a look. Is this the one? That'll be it there. Yeah, that's the one. Thanks for that. Who was that said that before? Can't remember. Someone said that's the manual. It's Keith, I think, said that. There you go. That one is autofocus. So that's the 51.4 FE lens for Sony. So it's $699. So it's double that price that I just showed you before. It looks like a nice looking lens, actually. It looks really quite nicely made, looking at it. It's sort of got a Batis look about it, really. Or even, it does sort of look like a Sony 55 or something like that. It looks really, really nice. What's the reviews they're getting? Is there any? No. Oh, yeah, it's getting it's got 4-star reviews, which is pretty good. Well, that's not bad either. I mean, you're talking about, $700 US for that as well, which seems like it's a pretty good lens, looking at that. Again, let me know if you have that. Mike's saying the street price is much lower nowadays, so you can get it even cheaper than that, Mike. Well, that's really interesting as well. So that's great. I must have a look at that myself, because the issue for me, I've already got the 51.8, and I'm very, very happy with that. But this is another interesting lens if you'd like to go to f4 compared to the Sony lens. So yeah, it seems like it's pretty good. So anyone that's using that, let me know. Michael has said that he's got the 14 2.8. Do you like that, Michael, that lens? Is that really sharp? Tag the Shooter said, just wait, David. It goes on sale for $4.99 all the time. It was $4.99 2 weeks ago. Keith has said it's a pretty good lens. Well, there you go. I think Rocking On and Samyang do make really, really good lenses. So, that's great. Oh, there you go. All right, so let me come back to me. So what we'll do now, I'm going to go to what's in my bag, because I want to show you a couple of things that are interesting. Now, it's going to be a little bit outside the box for you guys, but it's a couple of different things that I thought that I'd talk to you about. Just let me check up here. In Italy, it costs $550. So again, it's very, very reasonable. Mike has said the 2.8 1.4 is very sharp in the center, not so much in the corners. Yeah, and that can be sometimes with the cheaper lenses, that they tend to be a little bit soft in the corners. That doesn't bother me too much. The main focus for me is usually going to be, I suppose if I'm putting models on the outsides of the lens, it could be an issue. I'd have to sort of have a look at it and try it, but yeah, that's interesting. Now, what I want to show you is these things. So what I'm going to show you first is this, because you might think, what on earth is this in my camera bag for? But I'll be interested to know how many of you sort of use this device with your gear, and if you carry one around, because I'll be interested to know. Take the Shooter said, well, David Warner's, when you switch over to full screen of view, it was scary. Thanks for that. I love it. Rory Port said, have you tried the 75 to 300 f4 Sony lens? I found it very sharp. No, I haven't tried that either. These are great comments, guys. Just make sure to leave these in the comments down below later on, because it's great. Other people can't see these comments once this is gone. Mike has said, I was talking about the 28-1.4 as somebody mentioned it. The 1.450 is sharp in the... Oh, okay, so the 51.4 is sharp in the corners. It's only the 2.814 that's not sharp on the edges, because you're dealing with landscapes. That could be an issue. So let me switch to this. Now, I want to talk to you about this, because I use this all the time. Now, I'm not sure if you've got one of these. These are called Leatherman in Australia. I don't know whether they're called the same in the US. They come in a pouch that's sort of like this. But why this is really popular is because it's got... you wouldn't believe the number of times a bride, for instance, has an issue with her wedding dress, or a bride can have an issue with, or the grooms can have an issue where they haven't cut the stitching that's in between the sleeves or the side of the jacket. So these have amazing uses to carry them around. You know, you've got pliers if you need them. You've got a screwdriver. I use this all the time if I'm attaching my mounts, the Arca Swiss mounts that I use onto the tripods and onto the cameras. You've got scissors that's on this in case if you want to be able to use, cut people, not cut people. That sounded funny. If you wanted to trim things, stuff like that, cut that bit that sort of sticks on the groom's thing there, the actual stitching, things like that. I'm using these all the time, so they're a great thing that you can have to carry everywhere. And sometimes the brides have just been amazed when I've pulled this thing out and I've been able to save the day. You know, like they've had an issue with even sometimes even pulling up if they have zips and they can't get them in, and I've been able to use the pliers to do all that. So let me know if any of you have ever thought about carrying something like this. It's really important that you have a little kit of this stuff. And what I do in weddings, I'll carry things like this, and I'll also carry a little bit of a needle with some cotton. I'll carry Band-Aids, all these little things that the bride, and you can save the day in a shoot when you start to bring this stuff out, because, people are amazed, even a little bit of cleaner in case if they put something on the dress. All this little stuff like this can be a lifesaver, and that's why I thought I'd show you something really, really different. Keith has said, don't cut Susie with that, and you'll understand that if you watch my last talk where I was talking about lighting. I had this amazing model that I was showing everyone, Susie, that I've got a captive in the studio. You'll have to go back and have a look at the previous video if you want to know what I'm talking about that. Tag the Shooter said, I am Black David. We can't carry devices in the US without getting shot. Oh, really? Oh, God, that's terrible. I can't believe that. See, we don't have those sort of issues here. You can't in Australia, though. You can't carry devices if it was too long, like a knife. You couldn't carry a massive knife that was just a blade. But if you're carrying this sort of stuff around, you'd be fine. Now, admittedly, I don't think you can even carry this around in Australia on your belt. You can't carry it around on the side of your belt like you're just walking in the streets. You wouldn't get shot here, obviously, but you would get fined if the police found you with lugging this around. But because it's in my bag and I'll only bring it out when I need it, you would never have an issue with the police or anyone here. So I'm not suggesting that you carry this around on your belt, but stick it into your bag and then use it that way. The blade itself, is only, well, it is still pretty big, but it's not that. I think it's within the legal rules of what you can carry here, but not on your belt. So I just thought I'd show you that anyway. So that's a great device to actually use. The other thing too is I wanted to show you this, because this is one of the systems that I use to carry my cameras around. This has an Arca Swiss, so I'm using Arca Swiss for my cameras. And this is great because basically the Arca Swiss is this here, and what you can do is this has a belt, like a little thing there that you can then slide onto the side of your belt and it'll sit down. You can even put this onto your backpacks and things like that, and then all you do is literally just push this down into the locker and it locks in place. It's really, really a good system. This is one of the systems that I use. There's another that I'll use too that I'll show you when I go through my talk about extras for this series that I'm running with you, because I do use different systems as well. But I just thought I'd show you this today. This is a Peak Design system that I use as well. Who is it? Keith said, I'm in the state now and I carry mine with me. Well, there you go. So some just do. Keith said, I just don't bring it to the airport. Yeah, the thing is, if you were if you were on a plane, I wouldn't carry it in the plane either. It would have to be checked in. So it would have to be checked into your luggage. You wouldn't walk on a plane with that for sure. I'd be arrested if I did that. Like I said, you can't legally even wear them around here in Australia in the pouch that comes in that this thing, because that does have a belt pouch to it. I wouldn't walk around. I don't think anyone would stop you, but they could. But I wouldn't walk around with it on my belt. I always put it into my bag and bring it out when I need it, and there would never be an issue with it at all. But yeah, like Tag the Shooter said, he wouldn't dare do it, so it's interesting. Let me just check some other things here. Here in Italy, you cannot put the tripod anywhere on the public ground or in public places, or cops yell at you to... Oh my God, that's bad too. They're saying you can't use tripods. Tag the Shooter said, it's hard for me to keep my pants up with my own belt. Can't carry stuff around on my belt. You know what? And that's an interesting thing. And the other system that I'll show you that I carry, which is the not the Peak Design, I can't remember, it's the Black Magic Rapid Strap type of system. I use a system that comes over me like this, and I'll show you that when I go through the other stuff, but that holds the belt up because I have a similar issue. I don't have a hip, and so if I wear anything that's pretty heavy, it'll pull my pants down, and my wife is always telling me off. So yeah. Micah said, I have the Peak Design capture on every one of my backpacks, and it's really, really good, and it's great for lugging this around. Like, you can actually use it to sit on your backpack sort of like this and then pull it off that way. It works really, really great for that. And I do use that all the time for that. So, and because I've got everything Arca Swiss, I don't know whether what you guys use, you can let me know down below, but I use Arca Swiss for everything that I use, and I've changed all of my tripods and monopods and everything to have Arca Swiss adapters instead of the Manfrotto. Even though I've got Manfrotto heads, I've stuck an adapter on so that I can use the Arca Swiss, because I want to quickly jump in and change all the time, and I can't have different systems, so I'm concentrating totally on Arca Swiss. So let me know down there anyway what you use. You could sort of give me some things of what you guys are using. David Johnson said, sounds like you need a suspender. Well, oh yeah, well he has, and that's what I'm using, David. It's sort of like that for my Black Magic, I can't remember the name of it. I'll show you when I do it. I use sort of like a suspender that comes over the top and the back, and it locks onto the belt that comes down to stop everything falling down. So what we'll do now, we're going to go to the latest... Well, it's not really the latest shoot. This was done a little while ago, but I thought that I can take you through a shoot, and we can sort of discuss how this was done. And I'll talk about the lighting and stuff of where it was placed, and what I was thinking about when I was shooting these images, so it'll give you an idea. And this shoot has a night component and also a daytime component using different lighting, so I thought we could go through it as well. Mike said, I did the same, everything Arca Swiss. Yeah, Arca Swiss is a great system. Initially I did use the Manfrotto stuff all the time, but now I've gone completely Arca Swiss now. Franco has also said, anyway, I'll buy the Zeiss 55 1.8 in some hours. Really excited. I love the 55, Francesco. It's a great lens. I use that all the time. All right, so we'll switch over to this shoot, and I'll clear that latest shoot away. So these shoots, again, these are girls that are building their modelling portfolio, and she sent me an image that she wanted to match, and I'll show you that in a second, that you'll sort of see how I've changed this image, because she sent me one that she liked that had all these sort of pinks and red tones, so I had to manipulate the image. So I was thinking about that when I actually shot the image. But basically what I was doing here, this was shot with the 85mm batters, and it's shot at f2. Now I wanted deliberately to shoot that fairly wide open, because I wanted this out of focus in the background, and this is a fountain that's popping up here as well that I still wanted to keep in. You can still see that it's showing enough detail, but I love the fall off that's sort of coming through here. Now, Kerry was with the Profoto. I used the Profoto B1 here, and she was standing just out of the side. So basically, she was just sort of off this area, but a little off camera, pointing the light back into here. Now, she used that diffuser that I showed yesterday, which was that 2-foot octa that had the grid on it so that it was controlling the light that was actually coming in. And you can see, if you look, you can see where the light is actually coming through and giving her that bit of a highlight on that side of her face. And there's a little bit of a fall off on that side there. So you can sort of see where it's actually aiming. This day was quite overcast actually, so I needed that to add a little bit of fill on the other side. If I didn't do that, you wouldn't have had this nice dark area. Remember, your image needs shadows. So remember that when you're doing an image like this, to get shape on the face, you need to try and create some shadows. You can tell where the light is because you can see the catch light in her eye. So if you're looking at that, that's one way to tell where the actual light is. If I hadn't used the flash, there would have been no catch light because it was quite an overcast day. I'm using ISO 100 and it's 1/200th of a second. That gives you an idea there that it was quite a dull day. And I'm also shooting at f2. So, you know, again, that's letting you know that it was quite cloudy and quite dull. If I hadn't have done that, there'd be no shadow that was sort of coming over this side of the face. It would have just been basically one exposure over the whole image and there'd be no fall off over this area. So it's important to try, when you're doing these, to get that nice shadow to give shape, which is slimming, and it makes the image look far more interesting than if it was just flat. So do consider that when you're shooting this type of an image, even on a grey day. Grey days are great, but you won't get any of that shape in their face, which is what I wanted. Now, remember I was saying before that I wanted that pink type look that she gave me, that she sent me. This is the result after retouching that I went to. So I've basically tried to match. She wore this pink outfit and she wanted the background to sort of match what she was wearing at the time. So I've then even created I've given her a pink sort of look and tone as well, that's got that beautiful soft look about it, which was what that she was, you know, she wanted, and I loved it too. I mean, she sort of sent me the image initially. Sometimes I'm a bit hesitant if people send me images because I have my own style that I like to work at, and I can sometimes think, oh, I'm not quite certain that I want to go down that way, but I did like this thing that she sent me. So sometimes it is good when you're working with models to ask them if they have any ideas of what they'd like you to create, and then you can just do it in the editing yourself. You can see that, you know, this is very, very green and warm. The white balances work very, very well here. It was on auto, even though it was very, very green in the background, because that can cause havoc with the camera. This was with the A7R II. And then when it's retouched, I couldn't have this really warm background without making her a little bit warm as well. You know, that I wanted to give it that sort of look about it as well. So I wanted to show you that one. Now, the next image I may have showed you before, but it's from the same shoot, so I'm just going to go through it with you again because some may not have seen it. This was shot in a really, really dark sort of overhanging trees. There was trees that was hanging over, right over the top of her, and there's just this little bit of light that was coming through this pathway that came in between. Now, I used 2 Profoto units here. I used a bare flash, which was hidden just behind this tree here. I had to retouch that out, and that was firing that you can see if you look on her. It's giving her that backfill because there was no backfill there at all. And remember, when you're dealing with this type of image, you want that separation. If you haven't got the separation there, she's going to be lost in that background. So you had to try and get that separation. So that's where that separation's coming from. And you can even see it if you look at the arm there too, that she's got that line that's coming through here. You can see it on her hand, and you can definitely see it all through her hair through there. Now, I also had a second light that was off to camera right that was sitting around here with that diffusion on that was aiming just for her body. I didn't want to light up any of this area. That's why it had to have that grid on it, which kept the light focused just onto the model herself. So there was 2 flashes that we used here, so 2 Profoto B1s. You could have used just your normal handheld flash speed light if you wanted to. It would give you the same effect. It's just that I had the B1s. Yeah, and that's how that shot was worked. And that was 1/80th of a second at 1.8, an ISO 200. Again, it was with the 85mm Batis. And it's lovely. I like the fall off at the back. This was incredibly challenging and dark. I love that separation that it's given her with the light there. There's another one which we can look at, which is here. Again, you can see that it's given her that little bit of a fill on the side of her face because the lights are still the same. You can see there that it's given her a little bit of shape as well. And like I said, again, it's always important to try and add some shaping with the lighting that you're using because it will give that beautiful separation and it's very slimming. Not that these girls need that, but it's very, very slimming as well if you have that lovely light that's coming off. Another one, if we look at the next one, now this was shot totally different. So this was shot in the evening. I had a stack of, it was actually in a window light. So the background is created by window lights that were put behind her. It was, I can't remember, I think it was jewellery or something like that was shot at the background. Now this is shot with the ice lights. So this was shot with a different, there's no flash used in this. And this is how you can get really, really soft lighting using those ice lights. I had 2 of them. There was one that, actually I think I had 3. There was one that was over here, obviously pointing this way for the fill, that side. There was one that they were using up the top here for the hair and separation. And then I had another one which was down here to fill in this part of the background. The top one filled in that area and the one at the front just gave a little bit of fill down that side. Because again, these were incredibly challenging images. They were very, very dark and I wanted it to look lovely and soft and feminine. So these had 3 ice lights. So this was using continuous lighting on this one. And the next one, again, is using the same thing, which is this one. This was also using continuous lighting as well. Again, this was ice lights being used. I've used one again that was at the front. I think I use 3 all the time using this shoot. I did one that was basically coming over here. There was one for a little bit of separation on the back. I think I used 2 actually on this side, one for a bit down lower. And, you know, they were just giving that lovely fill. And she's got a bit of shadow that's sort of forming naturally through here. The great part with using the continuous is you see what you're going to get. So I could see immediately what I was getting in camera. But it does show you how soft you can actually get using continuous lighting. So you don't have to use flash to get this beautiful soft lighting. This is why I like the ice lights so much because they are softer. That rim of lighting that they have, that diffusion is really soft and it does look like window lighting. Again, this was shot at 1/200 at f1.8, ISO 640, and it's the 85mm Batis. I love the 85mm for portraits. Common Sense said, hello, David and all. Call me Jim. I hope Susie is well. We've still got comments about Susie. You're going to have to watch the other video if you don't know who Susie is. Amazing image you have up. Thanks, mate. Now, we'll go to some other ones where the people are walking. Now, this time I had to use flash. The difference between this one, I'm very, very close here. I can be really, really close to the camera. If you're looking at the flash, the handheld units basically are this close to the model. So you can't shoot environmental if you're using continuous lighting. Yeah, I mean, you can if you've got these massive lights, but you can't really shoot environmental. Whereas with the flash I can. So the big difference between this one and the next one is that I wanted to make this more about the environment. So when I was shooting this, I wanted to sort of show that alleyway that was behind her. So I had a Profoto B1 and I only used one flash here. Oh, Michael, thank you so much for the donation, mate. I really appreciate that. When I was shooting here, I had a Profoto B1, which Kerry was holding here on a light stand, and basically it was up about this far. Actually, it was up above her head, so it was sort of up about here, and it was flashing down. Remember, if you can, try and have the flash above the head, because you want that shape. And you can see that. If you look through here, you can see that the most of the light is formed on the face and the body down that section there. So she was just off camera, and that Profoto B1 gave her the fill that I needed to fill that area. Now, because it had that grid on, it's only lighting her up and it's not spilling over to these areas. Because remember, you don't want that light to spill on there because I wanted it more environmental. So it's important that you have that control. And this is why I was saying yesterday in the talk we had about modifiers, that shaping the light is such an important thing, guys. So make sure that you do always learn how to shape that light and to control it. It's so important in getting a beautiful shot. Again, if you're looking at the next one, it's the same lane, but I had her sitting down. The flash is again in a similar position, which is up here. And it's shooting down, coming over the top that way. Again, it's giving her that fill, and you can see there's a little bit of shadow that's sort of forming behind her there. It's very, very hard to balance the lighting. Now, I did have to use grids on these and also some foil, and I showed that yesterday because this had sort of this very incandescent light look about it. I couldn't shoot this with the white flash, and I showed that yesterday when I was discussing it. There's some orange foil that you can put over your flash, and you've got to use different strengths and match the colour that's being produced. If I didn't do that, she would have been very white and she would have looked odd. And you can always tell an image that hasn't been colour balanced, a flash that hasn't been colour balanced to your background. So make sure that you learn how to use gels on your flashes as well. Continuous light's easy if you have the control to change the colour temperature, but I was using gels in this situation to match that background light. With those ones on here, I used the ice light, but I didn't use it just white. I used some yellow foil that sat over the ice light. Go back to the previous videos, guys, that I've just posted, and you'll see how I did that because I show the light modifiers. So that was done the same. That was 1/250th of a second, f1.8. I'm using ISO 1000 here, 85mm, and it's the 85 Batis. So I have really ramped up the ISO here to use to get the shutter speed that I wanted. I wanted to make sure I did really freeze that. I'm not worried too much about pushing the ISO up on the A7R2. I can easily go to 3200, 6400 if I nail the exposure. Just be careful that you do nail exposure though if you start to push ISO, because it will get noisy. If you nail it, there's no issue. Roy Port said you don't seem to mind the shadow under the chin. No, I don't, Roy. I quite like shadows, but look, that's a personal thing for me. I find, and to be honest, my clients never ever worry about it. Sometimes I like the shape it gives. It doesn't bother me at all. But like I said, for me, as I classify myself as an artist, and I'm quite comfortable with that type of look. Others may not like it, and that is totally up to you whether you don't like that or not. Again, another shot here where you can see it's a similar shot. These are all balanced the same because I've used the same lighting the whole way through. You can see that it's given a shape on that front side again there, and it's given her that lovely fall off that when you look through here, it's dark at the back. And it's lovely lit on that side because the flash is sort of sitting over here, beating down through there. And it just gives it that lovely look against that background. This was incredibly hard to focus. It was incredibly dark through here too, and the camera focused really, really well. I was actually very surprised how well it actually focused. Keith said, shadow gives shapes, style to an image. Yeah, I agree, Keith. I actually don't mind them at all, even under the nose sometimes and stuff like that. I actually quite like shadows. As long as they're not too hard, I quite like them. If they were hard, I'd soften them off a bit. But yeah, they don't bother me at all. This is another one shot in Melbourne, which is Flinders Street Station. Again, I had to match the light through here as well. And you can see the fall off here too is quite strong on her face. If you're looking at it through here, you can see that it's given a lovely shape through that lens there. Again, the flash was off to the right here, beaming down this way. And you can even see there is fall off on the bottom. It's a lot darker down here than it is up here, but that's the diffuser that I'm actually using. But that doesn't bother me because the main part of this image that I'm trying to show anyway is this area. And there's still enough detail in the legs and shadow detail that I can still see, a nice result, which is important. You can still see her shoes and stuff like that. What I didn't want to do, though, was I definitely didn't want to light up this background. That's why it's important that I was using that grid again to to control that light and to shape it. So it's an important thing when you're doing these type of shots to, to sort of consider that as well. This was shot at 1/200th of a second, f1.8, again ISO 1000 and 85mm. And I had to basically, when I was doing this, I exposed for the ambient first. So I exposed for this largest area here to make sure that I didn't lose that highlight. So I exposed for all of this first, and then I worked out the exposure that I would need for Matisse to get that right. So when you are doing this, always balance for your ambient first. So get that exposure nailed first, and I'll usually take a photo of that. So I'll bring the camera up, take a photo, make sure that it looks correct. Luckily with the Sonys you don't have to, because you can see it in the viewfinder. So I'll get that correct first, then I'll turn the flash on, and then I'll add the fill in that I need. And it works, it works beautiful, because these are quite challenging in themselves to get a nice balanced look. Again, this was a different girl that I wanted a similar look into them as well. I mean, I probably could if I wanted to. Some people say that, again, that these sort of things detract the eye. I like the environmental photos to be as they are, and so I leave those sort of things, and the clients have never complained to me about them. You could, if you wanted to, just take them out. If you were really trying to be fussy and, and get those distracting things out of the way, but it doesn't bother me, to be honest. And again, it's given her that lovely fill that's coming across the side of her face, and down the body there, which gives her that shape that you need to give that lovely sort of slimming shape. Not, like I said, not that she needs it, but it does give that beautiful look as well. And again, I've balanced for this ambient light first, added fill. I've put a yellow foil onto the flash to give that same warm type tone. Otherwise, she would come out blue. If I hadn't have done that, basically, she would have come out looking like this. So that's perfectly what would happen. So that's why you have to use the gel onto your flash, guys, because if you don't do that, that is exactly what you're going to get, and it looks terrible. So if you're ever wondering why you're getting that result, it's because your flash is balanced at daylight and your camera is balancing for the ambient. So just make sure that you do balance for that background. And the last image that we'll look at is this one. This was a big Christmas ball that we did there, and I got Brianna to actually just put her dancing outfit on and then do a dancing pose in front of that as well. There is a flash that's sitting on the other side this time, so it's actually sitting over this side. Actually, no, it's not. It's sitting over there, because you can tell if you look there, the light's hitting on this side. Yeah. But again, I've exposed for that ambient. Now, I had to let this background go very, very dark, because what I wanted to expose for in this situation, I wanted to get the ambient to show that. Now, that was quite challenging in itself, because the first thing that would happen is these little fairy lights would blow out. So if you wasn't very, very careful with your ambient exposure for this, it would blow out, and that's why I've got the exposure that I've got, which is 1/80th of a second at f7.1. So I couldn't use a very open aperture like 1.8 or whatever for this, because if I did, I'd blow all this detail out that was in the light, and I wanted to show that for what it was. So that was the reason that I chose that. Now, that was just an artistic reason. So some people may say, well, they'd like to blow that out, and that was fine. But I wanted to show that Christmas ball and the detail that was in it, so I had to expose for that. That's why I used 7.1 in the aperture, and that did cause this background to go very, very dark, and I lit her up with a flash that was just over here with a grid on, and it just gave her enough separation to stand out from that background. This was a dancing portrait that this girl was doing. I did a number of these. No, I'm not on Patreon Common Sense. No, I'm not. Yeah, I don't do that. So I know a lot of people do that. I think they charge people extra for doing Patreon and stuff like that, but I'm not doing that at this stage. I probably won't. I like giving you guys stuff for nothing. So that's all of that. So if you have any questions about those guys, let me know in the comments down below, and I can sort of answer those for you. But let's open it up to some questions, because we'll have some questions. So if you've got any questions that you'd like to know or answer, I've got a wedding discussion meeting coming up in an hour or so for a wedding that's in November, so that's going to be interesting. What I might do actually one day is actually video the wedding meetings for these live broadcasts that I'm doing, so I can show you how I actually do wedding meetings with actual clients. I'll just have to confirm with clients first and let me because you'll see how the interview goes, and that could be great for that series that I'm showing you about wedding and portrait photography business that I'm running as well. So I've got that this afternoon happening. So do you have any questions that you want asked? Throw anything up now, guys. You can ask anything that you like. If not, you can leave those questions down below. Please give a thumbs up too, because it gets more people involved. That's the only thing at this stage that I'm asking for my amazing supporters, is to please give thumbs up, because it does get more people to watch it. Clearly, if you haven't subscribed, subscribe to my channel. We're doing an amazing setting up your own wedding and portrait photography business that's running at the moment. We're just going through hardware, but over the coming weeks, we're going to look at marketing, how I get clients, how I set up web pages, everything else. So keep following me for that. That's actually happening. David, you focus really good even at f1.8. Yeah, it just takes practice. I've found the A7R is pretty good at it, but sometimes what I will do is I'll use a flashlight too, Francisco. If it is struggling, I'll use a flashlight or something to get focus. The good thing with the B1s is they have the modeling light that I can turn on to get focus as well, so I can use that if I need to. But as long as you use fast glass, the Sony cameras are really, really good, and that's the trick for the Sony cameras, is to use fast glass. If you're dealing with fast glass, I never have an issue. If I'm not dealing with fast glass, that's when I do have an issue. But apart from that, it's okay. Like I said, if it is really dark, like some of those shots were really, really dark, it can be an issue focusing, and then sometimes I'll go to manual if it's really, really bad, but usually it's okay. David Johnson said, David, is there a gel kit that you might recommend? I'm currently using the Godox AD200 and the AD600. Well, you know what, David? I just went to a camera shop and I bought, because it's expensive, I went to camera shops and bought foil. They have them in rolls, and you just buy the foil, and then you can just cut it up to size that you like. And I've cut them up to sort of fit my bigger lights. I've got them to fit my little strobes, and cut them all up like that. And you buy them in different strengths. So if you go to any camera shop, decent ones, they should have them. And they have the greens and the oranges that you need. So that's the cheapest way of doing it. So I do that because by far I have that many of them that I've got to use. It's too expensive to buy these kits. So that's my main suggestion to you, is to go to a good camera shop and ask them if they have the yellow foil correcting gels. That's what they're usually called. And you can buy them that way as well, which is much cheaper. The Profoto ones have good ones that you can buy for the lights that fitted, and I showed them yesterday. So if you have a look at my video from yesterday, you'll see that when I'm talking about modifiers, what I'm using for that, and you also see the gels that I use. I think I showed that in the yesterday or the day before. You can have a look at that too. Rogue have some really good ones as well that you can buy, but like I said, they're expensive, all those ones. It's much cheaper to go and buy the ones in the camera shop, these rolled up gels that you can just buy. It's much cheaper, much cheaper. Roy said, appreciated your comment reshot of the Christmas bowl. I've got a shot with a musician who wants his mechanical organ as a background, concerned that I don't overexpose. Yeah, and that's the thing, Roy, you just have to be careful with that. Make sure you expose for your ambient. Don't worry so much about the aperture. Francisco said, I'm using the Sony 90mm 2.8 macro for portraits, and that is a really good lens, Francisco. There's no problem with that at all. The thing for me is I like to shoot as open as possible, so I often do shoot at 1.8 with my Batis, so I'd hate to give that up. And some people have said, why don't I go for the 1.4? I don't need 1.4. I'm quite happy with the 1.8. So, yeah, and it's so much lighter. But, yeah, that's just me. Michael said, hey, David, did you know the record button on the A9 can be remapped to the shutter button? I know, isn't that amazing? They've actually allowed that for the first time. They're great little things that they've done. Michael, the best thing that I've found about that whole system is now that I can rename the files, because I've talked about that before. Having multiple cameras and they were all having the same name was a nightmare for me. I was always terrified about overwriting an image that was already there. Now I don't have to because I can rename everything. But yeah, that is great. I haven't remapped that yet, but I might. It's probably a great thing because if you do stick it in the video mode, you just press that record button at the front. I don't know why they don't give you that for their other cameras. Any other questions before we go, guys? It's probably getting late for all of you Americans, I suppose. It's pretty late over there now. So let me know if you want anything else. Like I said, stay tuned for next week. I want to show you some other things like what bags I use and what belts I carry and things like that. I still have to go through my Fusion equipment, which is the video side of it yet, which we haven't touched on. So I will be taking you through that as well, through that series about setting up a portrait studio. Well, that might be all, guys. If you have any other questions, please leave them down below and I will get back. I always answer every question that someone leaves as well. Common Sense has just said A9 users, please rate 1 to 10 overall. 10 is best. Well, I'm really, really happy with mine. I wouldn't give it a 10, but I'd give it a 9. I love it, so I'm so happy with it. It's 10 p.m. in Minnesota. Michael said he's given an 8. Yeah, I'm really happy overall, really happy. I've got to start doing some modelling shoots with it, though. I've been really busy with my wedding editing, so I haven't been able to take it out. I must organise a model shoot with the A9 so I can try it. Take the Shooter said, David, was the advantage of using video mode instead of pushing the movie button while in manual? It's just that it's an easy button to press at the front. So I suppose sometimes they can be fiddly to press the ones at the back. So if you stick it on video, you can just press the shutter button to start your video mode. It's just an easier button. Francisco said, I saw you use a 70-200 f4 for weddings. No, it's not too slow, Francisco. That's not an issue at all. Look, to be totally honest, if I want to go any faster than that, I'm immediately going to go for my Batis or the 35 1.4. The only time I'll start to use the 70-200 is if I need that compression, and I discussed that when I started to talk about hardware in one of the other videos. F4 is not an issue, but I wouldn't be using that 70-200 in a reception that was low light. I'd be then using the 35 1.4 or the Batis. To be honest, every time I do wedding receptions, I'm using the 55 1.8, the 35 1.4, and the Zeiss Batis 85. I always go to primes. So having the F4 version is not an issue for me at all. I'm nearly always using the 70-200 in good light. So F4 is fantastic. And if you just look at Dave Dugdale, he just did a review between the F4 2.8 and the F4, the GM, and you know what, there is a little bit of difference, but it's not amazing. And the more that you zoom in, the less that difference is. So if you're zooming in onto a bride, and the background will be completely out of focus anyway. So I've found the F4 is ample for what I need, and it's so much lighter. Common Sense, I just said I just bought the Sony 70-200, yes, and it would be, look, it'd be an amazing lens. I'm not denying that at all. For me, I want to travel as light as possible. Clearly, the GM version of the 70-200 is better, just like the 24-70 is, just like the 85mm 1.4 is better than the Batis that I've got. But I'm happy with what I've got because, I haven't got sore backs and things like that lugging that gear around. Common Sense said 8 is great out of 9, so yes it is. They're talking about the rating for the A9. Roy Port said, what about the 55 1.8? I love that lens, Roy. It's fantastic, amazingly sharp. I use that a lot too, especially for in low light scenarios. I'll use that a lot. And I use it sometimes on gimbals. Common Sense said the 55 is awesome. Yes, it is. Common Sense said, I have one and it's great on the 6500. I use the 55 on the A6500 all the time because it gives you that 85mm focal look. Not the out of focus, but it gives you that, the same look as a 85mm, which is really, really good. Michael said, I was being conservative. Everyone knows the Sony fanboy. He's given it 10 now, so that's interesting. Tag the Shooter said, David, I tried using primes in receptions, but every time I got a 55 or 85 lens on, a crowd of people would run up and want a picture, and I need to switch to the 35. I've got 2 cameras, so it's not an issue for me with that one. Like I said, I've always got the 85 and I've got the 35 on as well, and it's just immediately of just pulling one up or the other. That's why I carry multiple lenses. I've just found since I've been shooting primes, I just love the look of primes, and I just don't want to go back to zooms much anymore. I'm tending to shoot more and more primes. Like I said, the 24 1.8 on the A6 500, my God, that lens is just incredible. I just adore it. Francisco said, I heard the 55 1.8 is not sharp at the corners. No, well, it might depend on which version you have. Mine's very sharp all over. There is a bit of chromatic aberration, though, on the 55, but it's just automatically fixed when you bring it into Lightroom if you set up on import, or you can just correct it with the lens corrections, and it's perfect. But so sharp, that lens. It's great. That lens is beautiful. Any more questions before we go? I think that might be just about it. Well, that'll be it. So watch for next week. I'll have more videos up next week, guys. Obviously, I'll be continuing with the series that I'm running next week. I might even post another live model shoot that as well over the next coming days. And I'll see you again for this live show next Thursday. Well, it's Thursday US, it's Friday in Australia at the same time. So any questions, leave them down below. Please give me a thumbs up. And I'll see you again next week. So bye, guys. Have a great evening and a great morning, depending on where you are, and everything else. Last thing is Tag the Shooter said, yeah, I've got two cameras, A7 II and an A9. Use the A7R2 and A6 500, but it stays at home. I'm thinking about selling my A7 IIs. I've got two of them. I'm thinking about selling them. I'm not sure, but I might sell them just in case the A7 III comes out, but I'll let you know about that, but I may put them on the market. Common Sense said, silly question for anyone, is there a fishing light for ball caps that would give a great supplemental light for photos? I'm not sure what that is. Anyway, all right, guys, well, I'm going to go, so catch you later, and I'll see you again for the videos starting next week. Have a great evening and day, guys. Bye for now.